the mayor had something come up, so y'all got me, so that's, I guess that's.
I gotta take a picture.
Anyway, you look at me, good or bad.
I got a document.
Yes. Everybody looks like they're here, except for the mayor. Let's, Craig, you mind saying the prayer? Let's do it, please.
Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for the privilege to be here. God, thank you for keeping everyone safe today and protecting us from serious weather. God, I pray for those who may have been in the path of that. And God, I just ask you to keep us safe leaving here. And I pray that you'll allow us to glorify you in all we do and say here tonight. And I just thank you for loving us and forgive us what we failed you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I think the good news is, I think we got YouTube working, so it should be able to see all of us now. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And now can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we have public comment. Jay Riley.
Mr. Riley, there's a 3-minute limit, and I am timing you now.
Yes, sir. I'd like to initiate, law 252A under the SOS.NS government that y'all pertain to use under term limits. In 2001, the, thing was set for 2 term limits in public office, and then you take a 2-year break, and then you come back. What we have on this, right here, many, aldermen have served 3 term limits and 4 term limits, back to back, 5 exactly. But in 2001, right here, on y'all's own government page, it says only 2 term limits, then you take a break. That makes you illegal.
All right, so are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just tell you, that's not our government webpage. That's something from the Secretary of State. You'll just listen to me. I'll tell you the answer to what you got.
I use the same page because I looked it up.
It's not the City of Petal's website. It is the Secretary of State's website, and 252A was a ballot initiative that never got to be voted on by the citizens of the state of Mississippi. So it is not an applicable law. So you come here to publicly comment, and I'm trying to tell you why the section that you're citing has no application here, and you're not listening. And what I'm telling you is that law was never passed.
Okay, Mr. Rocky, you also have something to say. When you didn't do your research on my child case, I want you to know, I want you to go back to a case from November 19, 2019, where many officers, the DA's father and all was in that courtroom about that same child. You said you couldn't produce witnesses to that case. That cost me my child in that case. You go back, Jeremy Brown was in there, Pete Williams was in there, the chief of police was in there, the DA's dad, everything. You
DA's dad was not in that case at that hearing.
He was talking to the plaintiff
Jay,
with Jeremy Brown.
what does that have to do with what you were discussing?
Nothing.
Yes, but you lied in his perjury in the courtroom.
No, you're wrong, you know, because once again, you're not a lawyer and you're too confused to understand what the law is.
I know what the law is. I have been
We fall under Mississippi municipal league, and they
did not do his research. There was officers and the DA's dad was in that
the
courtroom.
Mississippi,
He came out with
Jay,
Jeremy
listen to
Brown
me,
and
Jay,
Jody Lynn Long, the mother
Jay,
of
I'm
my
asking you to
child.
leave, listen
That's
to me,
the same
Jay,
thing.
listen, the Mississippi municipal league would not, they would not let us run and qualify for more than 2 terms, if that was law.
Judge Vaughn gave me rights to my child.
Jay, I'm fixing, now look, that don't have nothing to do with this.
I know what the law says.
That's one we got,
In
Rob.
2001, he was appointed out. They tried to stop it in 2014. Look up that law.
Alright, let's move on.
Okay.
Any more public comments? No. Okay, on the proclamations and resolutions, request to adopt a resolution establishing the Lee and Bowie River Development District.
Motion.
All in favor?
What's that gonna be?
Discussion?
Yeah, going through this, and again, it goes all the way back to February 2020.
Yeah, I think-
No, we're done with you.
And also, we skipped around the evidence because the congressional inquiries I had.
I'm gonna get
you
them
took
over,
evidence
Jay,
on
I'm
the
fixing to
17th,
Goodbye, Jay.
15th.
You're ridiculous.
Tamper with evidence. And I sent it to the judge. where he said-
Please do.
I'm fixing to call this down.
Just trying to go through, because we, going through the packet today, I had trouble figuring out where the lines are on the map, to be perfectly honest. It seems like it's the same one that got
Hey,
submitted
this
back
is
in
the-
2020.
Hey, got this
Again,
down.
it would be helpful to actually delineate
We try and-
actual on map parcels
He may have left, but
over-
it's coming out here.
I can send that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be.
it would help. If it matches up with the annexation.
You'll send it to everybody.
Yeah.
I need a picture.
Yeah, I think that's I think it matches up with the bill, H bill, or 1649 that was passed. But I said,
Craig? Not pictures, no. I was just showing them what.
I know we're all good here, we're,
Say it again.
Similar to the maintenance description.
Do you have it where you can forward onto these guys?
I can look up and see if I've got it.
If you give me just a second, I can send it to you. But basically, let me tell you that the map that was developed in 2020 was developed by Shells, Dearman and Waite. And then they developed the legal description of that property that you see as Exhibit A.
okay.
So we sent that legal description and map up to the legislature. And they passed it based on that legal description. Now, they did change the legal description inadvertently. They made what we call Scrivener's mistakes. So the resolution we're passing though is word for word what we sent up to the legislature. Now, here's the kind of mistakes that was made in the legislation, and I can tell you a question. Because we've dealt with this, and Melissa can tell you, we've been going back and forth between the two cities and the county and among the attorneys about, well, how do we deal with these Scrivener's mistakes? And basically, that was a mistake caused by OCR, which is optical character recognition, that when you take in a piece of paper that's typed and you scan it in, then you apply OCR technology to translate that into words. And that's what they did, but nobody double checked with the computer translator. And so it made some obvious errors, and you can see where the transpositional errors are. So that would explain any difference between what the legislature put in their bill that passed versus what we sent up. But what you're passing tonight, if you pass, and what Hattiesburg's voting on and what Forest County's voting on is the exact description that we sent up there that didn't have any mistakes. And that description has been now double checked by Shells, Dearman and Waite before we asked to be put on this document. And that kind of explains some of the delays. Now, but before you vote, if you hold on just a second, if you guys want to look at the map real quick, if that's a determining factor, I can show that to you. Give me just a second.
But while you're doing it, so there's no issue us approving this description, even though it doesn't match the House bill.
I don't think there is. Now,
Legally, there's no.
that's right. I mean, that's what we went back and forth among the lawyers was. I mean, and it's a common thing that we call a Scrivener's error that it comes from the old term where people had to copy documents word by word by hand, and those people were called Scriveners, and sometimes they make mistakes. Priests did it when they were copying text for the books of the Bible. It just happens. So no, we all recognize that there are errors in it, but we all have opined that these were minor errors and don't take away from what the legislature intended. And so that's why we also felt that we had to come back and create this district now that the law's been passed, but we're creating it with the correct description.
What we originally intended. So the intention is what we're going after. As long as, again, that was the issue. The words didn't match what the bill was.
I'm okay with what you just said.
So it makes sense. And another thing I just, highlight is that when you look at the numbers, if you go back to the February, when Mayor Barker was over here, and we talked about numbers and have some ownership, and we talked about 50, we're actually talking about a 0% floor. There was actually discussion that says we don't have to actually put any money into it, but what finally came back to the 50% minimum floor, which is up fine, because you gotta have some game in the game. The one thing I would like to highlight is, when you look at the number of parcels between the two cities, they're about $75,000 in lowering taxes for about 68,000. So when you look at the scale, we're really paying more into it, based on our overall budget than Hattiesburg. So I know this is stuff for Toby and Tony kind of, and whoever's going to be supervisor person, to figure out, because bottom line is, that's going to be, when I look at where our taxpayer money is going, and again, because like I said, we're setting something up that will be perpetual. So at a minimum, we're putting 50% of all those parcels into the pot. And again, and just for education wise, some of this land is outside the city, outside Hattiesburg, is actually in Glendale area.
That's right.
So, which is, so again, I think the intent, like I said, is overall, because it's supposed to be focused on the river and coming up here, but, when we look at the numbers we do, and the law says 50% is the minimum, and we go up to 100%. But again, so that's a decision we have to make every year when we do the budgeting for that. But, again, my caution is whenever we accept a decree or the House bill says you shall put 15% of your tax revenues, that's infringing upon our home rule. And that's really, that's kind of, now, I think it works out because we want this.
Yeah.
But again, I just one of the things that when I was doing research and they threw me for a loop was like, hey, the wording doesn't match. Are we cutting some of these parcels out? Whose parcel? Does the numbers match up? Because like I said, 10 years from now, we're just going to, we rocking, but,
The only ward this affects is me.
and,
I think it
and Greg, yeah.
No.
Y'all seen it now?
Yeah, is that what you said now? Yeah, this, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're fine on that, as long as if I need a copy of this, then.
Yeah, he just forwarded it to me.
Okay, good.
That's what y'all said.
And that's, I'm sorry to take all the time, but when we look through that, I was.
Have y'all seen it?
Mr. Bullock sent it to me.
Okay.
I just sent y'all the email of it. I think I sent it to everybody's email address. I've got two for a couple of y'all, but if you don't got it, then.
Are y'all good with it?
The other thing I'd like to just highlight, the decision makers for this are the board authorities, when you look at it. There is no check and balance on that board. There's no meeting notes. So I'm saying those three individuals will make the decision and they'll spend taxpayer money without coming back either to council, Hattiesburg Council, or this board. So.
Two mayors and the commissioner.
Yeah. So when I say our legislative responsibility is basically, policy and fiscal budget. So our chance to impact that will be when every year when we decide at a minimum 50%, but then we have no decision on where that money's being spent.
That's right. I mean, it's a separate entity.
Yeah, it'll be a decision by those three entities, and there's no meeting notes that are required coming out for any of those meetings.
It's definitely not in the, I don't remember that being in the legislation, but I don't know that they can operate without minutes. I know that this board can't, this board only operates by minutes, and I think that's through the school board and the county board, so I would assume that they've gotta have minutes because, and they're gonna want minutes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's too open to interpretation as to what they say, and, we use minutes historically, we use the minutes to defend your action. Somebody says, that's right, and that is the phrase, and how many times, and of course it's come up recently, somebody won't rezoning, well, I was told when I got brought into the city, well, if it's not in the minutes, I don't believe it. And I'm not saying it didn't happen, but officially, as your city attorney, it didn't happen unless I can see that it happened. So I think that they'll have to keep minutes. So I think that'll be all right. I do think that you are losing control over legislative purse strings to the extent of 15% of this small area that this district comprises. So yeah, you're giving up a little bit of something, but practically speaking, and fiscally, and you probably looked at this better than I do, but when you look at that map, there are hardly any streets there. I mean, it's kind of described it as underdeveloped. So and my understanding is that the value of all of the lands in the district is all just equally depressed and low. And I think that this was why Mayor Barker wanted to create a district and to try to attract additional sources of funding for such an impoverished, underdeveloped area.
Well, I think the last thing, a part of the bill was that all assets of this river district would become, equally shared. So the number one asset I see in this river district is the bridge. So I'd like to know, that's a part of it, and this is Tony not here, so, I mean, he had, one, I got faith and confidence, we're gonna do right, he's gonna do the right thing. I just don't know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, who's sitting in that seat. But the decision on when that ownership of that bridge transfers to that entity, is critical in the sense of, because then it's going to ask to do require maintenance, monies, decisions on all the things we want to do to open up the southern end of our entrance. So, but again, I didn't need to go off target on that.
No, that's a good question, because I talked about beautification coming over there to the right. That's Dawson Cutoff right there, and goes up to Carterville. And that's the whole area that we'd like to beautify. Is that part of this?
Well, I mean, there are no specific beautification plans, but yes.
I know.
But this river district goes all the way to Carterville Road. And so,
Yeah, right there.
and so, yes, all of South Main up to Carterville Road is part of the river district.
Yeah.
And right where it ends is about where your new sidewalk is gonna begin. So, I mean, I think that whole area is gonna be ripe for revitalization. It's gonna look really great here in about 5 years.
That
And
whole
your
area.
aunt's house is right off the backside of it.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah,
the
they probably
things
still-
that I had.
The work that you had done to kind of reestablish our south area, whenever you're talking to the engineers, like we had discussed at one point in time, was that just did that ever go through, or was that just to provide an opportunity?
That is just a conceptual, that was just a concept. And again, the only guaranteed data or monies we have is the medians with the landscape in between medians. Everything else on the tracks, the grass, that on flanks it, that's really, we need someone to kind of come forward and, hey, have develop a complete plan for that southern entrance. And it might be part of this river district. It probably needs to
That's
be.
my question.
So it's one of those things that, we all see that there's an opportunity in the future, but if we keep waiting, that future will never develop. So, that is, $1 million question.
Y'all,
That's part of Craig too, right there.
y'all done with discussion on this? We got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sorry, a lot of
That's
talk.
okay. We're going to general business. Request to approve the document claim for the month of December 2022.
Motion.
Second. Anybody got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make your work for us.
Request to adjust service bill to 119 Jackson Avenue as follows due to a
Did
leak.
I didn't put the amount on there.
Nope.
No,
Hang on, let me run go get my folder.
go to A.
Zero adjustment.
Well, you gotta call David Thompson.
That's right.
Why is this company?
Because he's not gonna be here, and he wants to explain what he's got on Springfield.
Oh, okay, I got you.
He didn't want to drive from Brandon in this weather.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, it was
Well,
supposed to
it
be.
is right now. Right north of here, it is looking, and there's
Yeah.
a special warning about, so what about 9 and 10? Can we do that?
Yeah, we can go, let's go to 9, let's go and go to 9.
You can't skip, I'm not in here.
Oh, wait,
Take your
you're
minutes.
That's right. Our
That's
official
what we
document.
like.
idea.
Water is $1,020.50. Sewer's
How
$362.33.
much was water?
10/20/50.
For that church, have they come back and,
$362.33.
have they actually fixed the problem? Because
I guess.
there was a statement in there that said, hey, we think we fixed it.
Well,
Because once we
I don't
say
know
yes,
what the bill
they don't
was.
gonna come back and say, oh, this last month, they did.
This
fix it."
is their-
It looked like that he had replumbed everything.
Yeah.
And so you would think that would carry, and it looked like they had a leak the month before, because there's 2 invoices
Yeah.
from their repair guy. I would think this would have to.
The water is
the
10/20/50,
tax is $71.43.
and, sewer is 362.33, and the taxes is 71.43. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 8, you need to call David Thompson. Request to authorize private sewer system at 241 Springfield Road. She's gonna call David and get him on the phone.
Public Works isn't here.
None of them are here.
Don't we have a director?
We do. Maybe Matt. Thought I'd tell you just in case you didn't know. Sorry.
Hello, this is David.
Hey, David. Hey, this is Steve Stringer, City of Tuttle.
Hey, Steve, good evening.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm fine. We just having some thunder booms up here in Brandon, so.
Y'all keep them that way. The mayor's out of pocket tonight, so I'm taking his place tonight. Would you explain
Okay.
to the board what you're wanting to do?
Okay, I'm asking for a sewer variance on, amended lot 3 in Forest Cove. This is on 241 Springfield Road. It's right around the corner from Old Richton Road, where you would turn off of Old Richton to Springfield to go back toward Evelyn Gandy. We bought these lots from Richton Bank and Trust. They had foreclosed on them and had Alan Flint, basically amend the original plat to make the sites more buildable. What we weren't aware of is that Petal didn't have any sewer down there. And so we're in a situation where Mike Tress contacted us a couple of weeks ago and said that the city could run sewer down to the little house for $19,000. Well, this is a $239,000 house I'm building that while we were putting it up last year, lumber prices spiked on me. So I'm in over my head on lumber, and the $19,000 extra sewer cost puts me in a negative position, even if I can sell the house for what I'm gonna ask, about $2.50 a square foot than any homes ever sold for in Petal in this size. So, I've got a professional engineer, Stephen Parker, who is from Pine Ridge Point in Petal. He does, he's basically a problem solver for people who have sewer issues. Worked with State Department of Health for many years, and he's got us out of some of these binds. And he's come up with a plan after going out to the site, evaluating it, to have us install a 1,000-gallon septic tank with a pump chamber on the south side of the house. And then we would run the solids into the septic tank, and then the liquids would be pumped out with a fluid pump to underground field lines that will be on the north and northwest area of the 3/4 acre property. He said this particular area of the land on that whole lot has the heavy loam soil with sufficient depth to function correctly. His engineering cost to design the system, get it pushed through the state health department approval for us is $2,000. And then the cost of the equipment installed is around $5,000. So our out-of-pocket is $7,000 versus $19,000, which in this particular case is all my profit.
Dave, I know Stephen pretty well, and he does a good job. I know he comes from the health department. I think the only thing, I talked to Amy about, she said that, probably the best thing for us to do, if we do approve it, is to approve it, contingent on just the health department signing off on it.
Oh, yeah, well, we would have to have that as well. As a licensed builder, I've got to have the health department's approval first, then our engineer, basically that's a septic tank installer, licensed installer, he's got to sign off on it as well. But that's Tyrone Creel out of Ronaldstown, who actually manufactures these particular tanks.
Do y'all understand what he's talking about doing?
I do.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First,
Hold on. We need a motion first, and then we'll do a second.
Motion.
You got a second? Second for discussion? Okay, Drew Brixton's got a couple of questions for you, David.
Sure.
David, this is more about the overall development of that area. Is this a single one-off house, or will the other houses being built in the same area?
Well, we built some houses around the corner from it, that face Old Richton Road, and this house is going down the hill. If you're familiar with, Springfield Road, as you come off Old Richton, it goes down a pretty steep decline and bottoms out in a creek bed. We're one lot above the creek bed, because we looked at buying that, but Stephen Parker said we couldn't put sewer lines into that without running into conflict with the state health department. So I don't see anybody developing on top of that to build a house on that lot. The slope is so severe, the foundation cost would eat a builder alive. And you're not gonna go build $1 million home in that subdivision. You're trying to build, entry-level, cost-efficient housing, and the only lot that's remaining there is not efficient. Stephen Fairley bought it, but had no idea what he's gonna do with it.
And the reason I ask that is sometimes we have to look at overall the issue versus just individual, one developer building a house right here. And I know you're saying, I agree,
I understand.
cut and kills.
I believe it's a one-off. I believe when they see the comps and the builders see what I don't make on this house, there won't be anybody jumping stumps to go in there.
Or we, again, there's places there in Petaluma, we don't have sewer we should be looking at sewer lines, not only at Springfield Road, but also on Sunrise Roads that we don't have, that we had trouble during the annexation because we have not taken care of some of our own infrastructure. So understand that this is a one-off for you all, for your plan to build there. And I just want to confirm, these are lines that are not being aerosol sprayed. These are actually buried lines, effluent lines, right?
That's correct. They're underground. Yeah, that's why the cost is so high. Typically a septic tank would be in the $3,000 range, but we're gonna have to put in a considerable amount of field line on both the north and northwest side of the house to keep it all underground. Fortunately, we've got loamy soil there that has a great depth that will allow that liquid to absorb.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add, I know we had a training about Department of Health, which is standard, just make sure that it's not a sprayed field, that we're approving a.
No, it's not. He's done both for us, so we're very familiar, but no, this can't be a spray field in this particular case.
So does he need to amend it? Blake, do you mind amending your motion that if this passes, it will only be on the provisions that it's approved by the Department of Health and that it is not a spray field?
I'd like to amend the motion that it is dependent on the approval of the Department of Health and that it is not a spray field.
Drew, your motion still stands, second, still stands? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passed. David?
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, I appreciate you gentlemen keeping me from having to drive down there tonight this weather.
All right, man, stay safe.
Thanks, sir.
We'll get this, moving and get this stuff to Hank.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
Steve. Good night.
Good job, gentlemen. Very good job.
Okay, number 9, request to waive sewer tap fee for Shane Tobin at 53 Wooden Square.
Motion,
And I'll second.
discussion.
Motion second, go ahead. and
Yeah,
discuss.
one is, and this is more for historical preservation of why we're doing this. The tap is there, so yes, normally we would charge a fee for tapping in this. But when you look at the circumstances on this, when Mr. Coleman was telling me they bought the house in 2019, which was annexed as part of the 2012 annexation, 2003 annexation. And all residents were given option to basically tie in at that time there's a certain point in time that they were given free of charge to say, hey, this is your chance, get out of jail free card. Now, the original owner did not choose to do that. He kept their own septic systems, and there's a lot of people who still have their septic system. That's fine. But what I really appreciate the Colemans did is when they bought the house in 2019, they actually started paying their sewer fees. So they actually were contributing to the system. So, when I look at, they've actually been paying into the system. And again, now when they look at, do they redo their septic system or they connect in? Like I said, most of those systems are, being phased out based on time, and majority of these ones out there will eventually have to get the same decision. When they come to us and say, hey, we've been not paying fees for 5 years or 10 years, now we want a free connection, it's gonna be a different story potentially. But for this case, Shane,
He's been paid.
he's been paying since he bought the house as a new resident there. And so with that, I think those are circumstances that sway me to lean, to, make a motion for this. So, and he eventually will be going over to a new, board, but Craig, you have anything to add on that?
No, I mean, the guy's done his due diligence, he's paid his fees. We've been in the opposite situation where we did not have a line there, we were charging fees. I just think it's the right thing to do here, guys.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, request to appoint Kayla Sedekal to the board at the Southeast Mississippi Community Investment Corporation Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's all I have. I don't have nothing on the mayor's pro tem report.
Submission for, board of trustees for the school board?
Oh, yeah, we are taking applications for the, school board. We got an opening that is appointed by the board alderman. So, do we know how long we're taking applications?
I think to the end of this week, he said we probably set up, interviews next week.
Probably set up interviews next week.
My understanding is we have 4, maybe possibly
Yeah,
5.
4, maybe 5, yes. So,
That's nice, rather than having a bunch of
absolutely. So,
One other consideration, and I've talked to Tony about this in the past and discussed it with a couple of the other aldermen, but since it's after New Year's and all that fun stuff, I kind of want to get some board members' opinions on this. Is there any possibility of consideration, depending on our city's wishes and just an idea among us to change the firework ordinance to allow fireworks on the 4th and the 1st for very particular amounts of times? Or my thought behind this is that there's so many people that ignore it and launch it anyways. It'd be a good opportunity for us to actually make a little bit of money off of it inside of the city by allowing fireworks stands to set up at certain points, allowing our residents to actually shoot. At the same time, being able to come down hard on the days around it because we're allowing this period. I know that there are kind of pros and cons on all sides of it, but I've always personally, just a big story of my bias, I've always personally been a big fan of fireworks and shooting them off and all that fun stuff. I know that there are plenty of people that would love to do it in the city. I would love to get the city's opinion on it, one way or the other.
I don't have a problem looking at it.
So, anybody profusely against the idea?
I just have a problem with it being against the law and fire being fired off in every neighborhood around the city.
And
Well,
that's,
the problem has always been, I mean, in the 11, how many years I've been here, what I've always heard, the problem has always been, if somebody's setting off fireworks on Cola Street, by the time a call is made, and officers, we got officers dispatched off to the city trying to chase fireworks.
Yeah.
And they're gone, and, it's literally whack-a-mole throughout the city.
and I think a big part of it would be able to say like, look, y'all can shoot fireworks. Do it on these days, do it at these times, shrink it to about 4 or 5 hours or something like that.
And that, like you said, that might, having that ordinance and that rule and clearly communicating it might narrow down.
Yeah.
If I could offer a different way to look at that ordinance though, people shoot fireworks. It may or may not be against ordinance. It's hard to tell in every situation. But when an officer does show up, they know they can shut it down. And from a law enforcement perspective, having the power to shut down late night fireworks when it's necessary is a valuable tool. And it's that simple. If they want to show up and shut down what's happening, they have that legal authority to do so.
We could still have, for a safe and, safe environment, a police officer could probably do so if he sells something that's unsafe
I
act.
think they would always have
Yeah.
the.
Even if we had a period of time, and just like, we talked about this in the past, and one of the things I like to explore is, monetizing this, because like I said, we lose a lot of money from stands that sit right outside our city
And
limits.
people gonna buy them and shoot them
And
inside.
it's almost, to transport across our border.
Kind of like,
Yeah. Now, I mean, how much of that could be, $50,000, $100,000 in taxes over a year? I mean, when you look at different events, I mean, that's another police officer.
Wichita, Sunday, we did it out in the county and instead of buying presents, that's what we did. We just pulled our money together. I think we spent $700 or $800 and we had a good show Settle had.
And I think that we
Didn't
can,
see it.
we can set the time limit up to be strict and say like, look, not these days.
Oh, they wouldn't let me
Like,
do it.
you can do it on this day,
I had
between
one.
these hours, any other point in time. And, Chief Hyatt had mentioned before that it would be wise to include Chief Hendry's opinion on that for safety precautions to make sure that no fires or anything like that are lit as, due to the environment. So that can be included in the ordinance change, but, yeah, I'm happy to see everybody's.
Ask her, if you've been in the media and all, and I'm a citizen, what would your opinion be?
They do it anyway.
I know, that's what I'm saying, they do it anyway, it's hard to catch everybody.
Sorry, it's me.
Thank you, Haskell.
You're welcome.
Basically, I had some neighbors, the third time my bedroom window got hit and exploded. It was one phone call, it was done.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to see it, they didn't have to have evidence, they were just allowed to say, we're done.
That's right.
And
And I think we still, I think we
Yeah, I
still
think
have
in
that
those
authority too.
situations.
Yeah, I think they still have that authority too.
Should always do that.
Yeah.
Because you always gonna have somebody that's gonna, they don't care what the law is, they still gonna try to get away with it, so.
Firing mortars, not fireworks.
Yeah.
I think if you make these days, it just occurred to me too, you gotta, don't forget to incorporate the language of if we're under a burn ban.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying,
right.
as part of it, we need to make sure that Chief Henry gives that approval
Yeah.
for.
Well, and even always subject to change. I mean,
Yeah, that's
subject to,
Burn bans by local or state officials.
right.
And I vote that Mike Lott writes the ordinance.
Okay.
So
And I would just put, the flip side of this whole argument is why some people do not like fireworks.
Yeah.
And it's for mental issues.
Yeah.
For soldiers and veterans, cops, firemen have PTSD.
You know, and,
It is a real story, real issue.
that's,
So it's difficult to explain because it's all individual, but and usually those, now that's being said, there's ways to mitigate that.
and that way though, too, and a lot of things complaint driven too, so I mean, at least you would have documentation too, we had this complaint, and so, and then we have to shut them down if we do have a complaint on it.
And not only
Something
that,
for that.
I know that we've discussed this a little bit in the past, and I think a part of it would be able to say that we could say to those people, these are the hours in which this will be happening. Because like we all know, people do it anyways at all points in time, and I'm sure it messes with people. And I'm sure it's a frustration of saying like, hey, we don't allow this, and then it happens every single or twice a year anyways.
And you got
So-
people that try to abide by the ordinance, and then people that don't, it aggravates the ones that abide by it, do it the right way.
I don't know if we would want to get this deep into it, but, we don't have a burn ban per se in the city, but if your neighbor has
Complaint,
documented medical reasons why that,
fire department go cut it, shut it down.
Actually, there is a process where you can get a burn permit or burn ban within 100 meters of your land.
well, we honor that
Yeah,
too.
well, no, I'm gonna say it could be permanently
Gotcha.
stated, and bottom line is if within 100 meters of your residence, it can be great, and you can
How
have
many feet is that?
We use speed over here, we don't use meters.
far enough away.
Yards.
But you're right, that is a opportunity for, if someone has an issue, they say, well, I'm gonna go ahead and create a safe circle, which that's what the burn bans are, and they're permanent, because there's several around in the state, in the city already, so that's a great, we have a venue to address some of these concerns, so that's the good thing about, working through it and making sure it's, tight, and,
So the things that we need to consider is just, police still have to be able to enforce quite well. We set our dates and our time limits, and we take into account Chief Hendry's, say so every a week or two before. I'll talk to him and see how far out that needs to be based on his opinion. And, burn bans around permanent locations that are already established.
You got till June.
for an option to address it like that.
Just for transparency's sake, I hate fireworks.
We used to do with them.
Oh, yeah, we get a lot going on out here, we just vote on.
Did
Let's go
anybody
ahead and start drawing this up
in the
real fast.
gallery got any comments,
Ms. Garrett.
that's on the agenda? We got any legal?
But nothing legal.
All right, well, We have a motion to adjourn.
Adios.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Write that
Meeting
down,
adjourned.
Melissa, adios.
Best meeting this year, Steve. Well done.
Put that piece of paper over there underneath that number.
Break to 10 minutes.